Today we are actually going to install Linux onto a formerly running Windows 11 laptop. We're going to go ahead and start with a Windows computer. We're going to look at the software that we need to do this, and then we are going to walk through the steps you're actually going to take. Now, as a little disclaimer, a few of the steps are going to take a little bit of different steps depending on the manufacturer of your PC, mostly how to get into the BIOS menus and how to run those BIOS menus when you are there. But let's go ahead and dive right on in. Thanks for checking out this video here from Switch to Linux, and today we're actually going to switch to Linux. Isn't that great? We have previously set up Windows 11. I showed you kind of why I don't really like Windows. And then the next video we did is saying you don't necessarily want to jump in cold turkey, especially if you only have one computer and you need to maintain some level of workflow. We talked about installing free and open source software, and you can have a look at that video linked down below. But if you are ready to go, you're like, I am gung-ho, I'm going to go ahead and install, that is what today's step is going to be. So let's go ahead and start by jumping on over to our desktop. We have connected ourselves to the internet via a cable, and what we're going to do is install Linux Mint. So we're going to go ahead and pull up a web browser, and we're going to go to linuxmint.com. And as we go to linuxmint.com, there's going to be a couple of options. So when linuxmint.com opens up, you will have a few different options. Now, the recommended is 21.3, and I would recommend that for most people. That one does work really well. I'm going to use LMDE 6, and LMDE 6 is a Linux Mint based on Debian instead of Ubuntu. And really the only reason I'm going with that on this particular build is because this one is going to give me the ability to have it based on Debian. It doesn't update as much, it doesn't roll as much, and since this computer is going to somebody that completely abhors all updates, I'm going to go ahead and just use this edition because it's going to have a little bit better options. Now, to save time, and I'm on a very slow internet connection, I have already downloaded the distribution, but I have not yet verified it, and it is very important that you verify your distributions. So over here, you can see the integrity and authenticity, and then they have a verify button here. This is going to be the step that some people are going to glaze over and be like, I don't know what any of that means. Let me actually pull this guy up real quick. And we're going to click this verify button, and I'm going to show you. So it's like all this, SHA25some.txt. What in the world's all this going on? We have a GBG key. We have an integrity check. And then there's like, I glossed over. Okay, let me make this simple for you. What you need to do is you need to verify that the download matches this key. So we have the LMDE6 Cinnamon 64-bit ISO. We need to do a checksum against what is called an SHA256 hashtag check. And we want it to match this guy here. So the way we used to do this on my older videos, we installed something called Hashtab. Unfortunately, Hashtab has been discontinued. And while you can still download it, and it's probably going to be safe enough, we're going to go ahead and go with an application that is still being developed, and that is called GTK Hash, which is going to work well, and it has a very nice portable build. Now, the first thing I'm going to warn everybody about, do not ever click on an ad for anything you are searching for. The reason is malvertising. We have separate videos on this, and we've covered it a lot in the news. It's when a scammer takes out an ad and pretends to be a software package. So whatever we go to, make sure it is not an ad. Now, this is probably their website. Let's go ahead and have a look at that. And what I actually did is I grabbed this from the GitHub page instead earlier. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. So over here, we have the Snap Store and the FlatHub. Those are both going to be applicable to Linux. We have a zip file over here, and you can see it does MD5, SHA1, 2, 3, which includes 256. This is the one that we need. So I am assuming if we download the zip, it might be the latest, but I am not completely sure. That's why I went ahead and went to the GitHub page on their releases, and over here I know exactly what I'm getting. So W64, this is Windows 64. Now we have an installer, which is an exe installer, or you might find an MSI installer on Windows. That is going to install the thing system-wide. It's going to appear in your start menu and all that. Where possible, however, I like standalone applications. These do not embed themselves inside of your operating system. You can run them from a USB drive, and it does make a lot more safe of a deployment. So we're going to go ahead and download this. Now we are going to need one more application, and since this is going to take some time to download, we'll go ahead and look for that one. And that one is going to be Etcher. And if I remember how to spell Etcher right, what we're going to do, now this one, warning, is one of the applications that did get itself showed up in one of those malvertising campaigns. Now this is a Etcher.download. I'm not sure I'd go with that one necessarily. Is it Balena-io/Etcher? This is the company that makes it. So this site here, Etcher.balena.io, is going to be the official site. Do not download it from anywhere other than this. Download.com. Nope, could be malware. .xyz, definitely malware. So let's go ahead and download this guy, and let's reject all cookies. And over here we have Etcher for Windows, we have Etcher for Mac, we have Etcher for Linux, and then over here we have the installer, we have a portable. And this bottom one down here is portable for 32-bit. Since our Windows is 64-bit and I prefer portable software, I'm going to download this one. So, that's going to take longer to install. So that's 6 minutes to download. I have a slow internet connection where we're recording this, so pardon me for that. So let's go ahead and have a look at what we have. Now, as I said, I had already come up here and I have already downloaded the distribution. If I click this, it's going to download our Debian LMDE file, and that is already over here in my downloads. So you can see LMDE 6-cinnamon 64-bit. Now this is our standalone application we just downloaded. Let's go ahead and extract this guy here. Let's go ahead and hit the extract all. So you'll notice that is a compressed zip file. So we'll go ahead and let this guy do its extraction thing. And then this is going to be your easiest, simple way to check the hash and make sure that the hash matches what we need. Well, that's downloading. Let's go ahead and copy this guy into our clipboard because we can compare it with the software. So again, there's a bunch of these. This is version 4, this is version 5, this is version 6, this is 32, this is 64. Since we have the LMDE 6 Cinnamon 64, this is the one that we want. So let's go ahead and have a look. Our software is just about downloaded. So let's go over to here. Oop. This isn't a complaint on Windows. This is just me being incompetent with running Windows systems. This is me. This is me. And the fact that I hate pinning things. This is why I hate this pinning crap. All right. Let me just go back into our downloads, and we need to go into our standalone. This is the file folder. And then, okay, so it was loading us up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hit this application, and then Windows is likely going to get me a scary, whoa, scary, we have protected you from your own freedoms. Oh, Windows protected your PC in an unrecognized app. Hit the more info, hit run anyway. GTK hash is a reputable software package. So let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so it's asking us what the file is. We're going to come over here, go into our downloads, grab our LMDE 6, and we're going to do a paste this guy in. I think we can paste this guy in. Apparently our software crashed itself. I've never seen that happen, although I've never tried to paste that in before. Let's go ahead and do that again. Let's just hit the hash button first. Okay, so let's go ahead and just do a visual comparison of our hash to this application here. So remember, we're looking at the SHA-256. It appears, let's see, 27. It appears to be different. I do not want to use this file. I'm going to stop and consider my options here. We have our issue resolved now, so I'm not going to edit that out because I really want to emphasize the importance of verifying your ISO. So as you saw, that did not verify. And I went back to the computer I originally downloaded it on, and I ran the Linux command, as they're saying over here, sha25sum, and that actually verified just fine. So apparently there was an issue we had with migrating the file from where I downloaded it over here. Maybe something didn't get copied right in the USB drive or something else, and that's going to cause some problems. So I did have further issues with Windows. For whatever reason, it would not actually allow me to transfer the file using an external hard drive. And then I tried 2 extra hard drives. Windows would not see any of these 2 hard drives. So I tried a USB drive and it wanted to format that. And yes, it is formatted. The drive is already formatted in a file format that works perfectly on Windows and on Linux. So that's not the issue. And it's just Windows is annoying. I end up getting to it with transferring the file to my network folder and then moving the network folder over. And then I sent the file back down here. So with that, let's go ahead and rerun our GTK hash. We're going to go in, grab our file again, and we're going to go ahead and hash it. And we're going to be checking that against this over here. So here's your GTK hash, and you'll notice now the file appears to be correct. So hopefully I can paste this in without a problem. For whatever reason, pasting in the GTK hashes keeps on crashing the program. So let's go ahead and try one more time, and we're just going to do a manual inspection of the file. That's just fine. There's ways I've done this using a spreadsheet as well, just lining the 2 files up next to each other. So I'll usually look at the beginning of the file, 969, 969, the end of the file, 59D54, 59D54, and then here we have an 889 in the middle. So there's our 889. So you can see our file is now properly hashed. Now that we have that file properly hashed, we can proceed with the next step, which is going to be using Etcher. So we have downloaded that. Let's go back to our downloads folder, and here is our Etcher. So if we double click this application, it's probably going to give us a scary warning once again. And as I do this, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to plug in a flash drive that we're going to use with Etcher. Oh, it did not give me a scary warning thing. All right, I'm going to remove my internet, disconnect our internet, because I don't have an extra available standard USB port easily available if I want my mouse. So we'll just go ahead and click this. So here we're going to, what this is application is going to do is this is what takes the downloaded file, which is the ISO file, and then this is going to install it onto a USB drive in a format that will allow the system to boot. It's not just taking this file and putting it on the drive. You have to burn it to the drive in such a way that the drive can then boot. So we're going to hit flash from a file. I love how Windows automatically defaults to OneDrive. Use our crap. No. So here we're going to select our LMDE6 Cinnamon. We're going to open this up. We're going to select our target. It should only show you the drives available that are like USB drives. You'll notice there's the hidden drive. Don't do that. That is your system drive. So you see it's system drive. It's a secure drive. So we don't want to do that. So we're using the PNY USB 2.0. Ideally, you should do this with a 3.0 drive, but I don't have a 3.0 drive handy that I can use right this second. So we'll go ahead and start the burning process. And then it wants us to allow this application. So we can show more details if you want. There might be information there. We're going to say, yes, I'm going to allow this to make these changes. So this could take, depending on the speed of the computer and the speed of the drive, it could take, a minute or two. It could take, 10, 15 minutes. So since this is burning it onto a USB 2 drive, it might take a little bit longer. So I'm just going to go ahead and wait for this to finish. And then I'm going to be back once that is done. All right, so we have about somewhere between 10 and 15 seconds or so left on this. So figured I'd show the remaining portion of this part here. So now that this is done, we will have a USB drive that is capable of booting up the system. Now it's verifying the drive, so it looks like that'll be another 2 minutes. We can skip it, but you don't want to skip this. You don't want to skip your security and your testing options on building one of these up, because you could get into a circumstance where the drive didn't copy right, or the file's not there right, and you might get something that doesn't boot, or a driver's not right, or something messed up, and then you get a bad experience saying, oh, I tried Linux once, it sucks. You don't want that to be the circumstance. Now, the next step we're going to have to do is we're going to have to reboot the computer utilizing this drive. There are, inside of the Settings app, there is a place where you, in theory, should be able to go to boot into some form of advanced startups. And one of these startups allowed you to boot off of a USB drive. When I tested this, it didn't show up. The drive I tried to boot with did not show up, although the drive was not in there when I first started the system. So I'm not completely sure if we want to try that this time. I think what I might do is I'm going to go ahead and do the manual way, because that's going to work for everybody once you find out what the proper codes are to do that. So just be aware there is an advanced startup that allows you to make some changes. It allows you to boot from a USB drive. You know what? Maybe let's go ahead and try that. Let's see if that USB drive shows up, because that might be an option some of you want to see. But in reality, we do want to know how to get into BIOS, because there might be a few settings you need to change. So here's what we're going to do. This is done verifying. As soon as this says it's correct and finished, and it verifies that we're all done, go ahead and close this out. Flash completed. That's fine. What I'm actually going to do is I want the internet as a boot up. So I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to put my internet back in. Verify I have internet. And then we're going to go ahead and forsake our mouse and use our trackpad, because I'm going to plug the ISO that we just burnt into here. Now, plugging this guy in like this, oh, will it fit? Okay. So this probably is not going to be well recognized by Windows. Ignore that. We don't need any of that. Let's go ahead and go into our settings, and we're going to hit our Restart Now button. So let's go ahead and hit the Restart Now. And this guy here is going to reboot the system, and it's going to give us a reboot into some more advanced boot up options. So it looks like capture card's not going to work, so we'll use our more crude option down here. And you can see that we can exit and continue. We can turn off. We can use a device, or we can troubleshoot. So if we look at using a device, there we have. Now we have this is our device. So in theory, I could probably boot off of this right now. I was not able to find, here's like other advanced options. There's reset PC, startup repairs. I didn't see anything that allows us to get into the BIOS. Maybe this does. Let's go ahead and try that as an option. We're going to see what that does. Now, in reality, accessing the BIOS menu usually is either going to be on boot up. You're going to push either escape, F2, delete, maybe insert, and one of those. Okay, that actually got us into BIOS. Okay, so we can get into BIOS by changing that setting there. You need to check your computer manufacturer. I oftentimes like to use what's called the one-time boot menu, which also gives us the option to get here. On a Dell computer, that's usually F12. On a MSI motherboard, that's usually F11. On a HP computer, that's usually F9, but you'll want to check your documentation for how to get into here. So a couple settings we might want to toggle around is under your security, not passwords, under security, TPM 2.0. Windows 11 required this. This was one of the weird issues, but apparently you could turn it off at some point in time. It doesn't matter if you keep it on or off in Linux. The other issue is under boot configuration here. And under your boot configuration, then you can see that there's a secure boot down here. This BIOS does not behave super easily. Hold on. There we go. You can see our secure boot over here. For some reason, this is turned off. I'm not sure why it is. The previous person that had this computer apparently turned it off for some reason or another. But this was turned off when I got the computer. It doesn't matter if you turn it on or turn it off in most Linux distributions. I haven't tested this on, so I'm going to keep it off right now. Since Debian and Linux Mint, I believe both utilize secure boot, we can probably turn it on, but I'll test that after I actually install the system. So with that, what we're going to do is let's go ahead and just turn this guy off right here. And then I'm going to turn it on and we're going to spam that F12 key, and that gives us our one-time boot menu. So we're going to go ahead and do that. You can see up in the corner, it says preparing one-time boot menu, slightly cut off by the camera. Now, over here, we'll have all of our options. You might see over here our Windows disappeared, and that is because halfway through recording it, I looked up and saw OBS stopped recording because the cat jumped up on the stool where I'd set the keyboard and stopped the recording. So I already half started. The whole system is completely unstable right now because I already half started the install, which wiped out the Windows bootloader. So that's just my cat being my cat and doing catty type things. Meow. Now he's sitting up there like I'm a stud. So we're going to go ahead from here and boot right on into our drive. And we have a couple options. We have start LMDE, start it in compatibility mode, which means it'll use different drivers. We can do boot from the next volume, which won't work anymore. And we have our firmware settings and our memory test. Now, if you're doing the regular Linux Mint, not the LMDE, but the regular one, you'll also have an OEM option, which I like as a better option, but we'll just go ahead and use this since this is, as I said earlier, the best build for the person that's building this. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then this is actually going to go in. It does already capture, recognize the capture card in there. I can push up and see all this scary text going on. This is just systemd starting up. Now it's going to boot the computer with an extended display. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mirror the displays. And then we'll go ahead and walk through the installation process. All right, so we're going to right-click on the desktop, change our display settings. That's a brand new feature of Cinnamon. Hit our mirror and apply. And now we should get our capture card and our laptop monitor be the same, so we can jump back over to the capture card again. All right, we're going to go ahead and double-click the Install Linux Mint on our desktop. And this is going to boot up the installer. So let's go. So here's under we're going to select our language under English and then select our time zone. Since this is going to somebody over in California, we're going to select Los Angeles as the time zone. Hit next and then pick our keyboard layout. Of course, we're doing English and this is production, so I'm going to blur these out. But we'll go ahead and enter in the computer name and the username and the password. We can set it to log in automatically or to require the password, and we can encrypt the home folder. Of course, over here, we can select our disk, which is going to wipe out everything on our disk. Our system will no longer be bootable by the old operating system, so goodbye, evil spy. LVM, I like LVM. It just makes better use of the disk space, and then we can encrypt the entire disk right here or not. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm not sure if he wants that or not, so we're going to go ahead and leave it like it is here. We're going to go ahead and do this. It says, are you sure this is going to wipe everything out? And the answer is yes. Now we want to choose where this guy is installing the grub menu. The grub menu, when you first turn on the computer, the grub menu loads the list of the possible operating systems. So you want this on the first drive it's going to boot. We're going to go ahead and make sure that stays checked. Usually the default is what's good. unless you're doing something odd, in which case, don't worry about it. So now we're creating the partitions, copying the files, and we basically need to run through this and wait for this to finish its thing. So we will turn off the cameras and come back when this guy is done for any next steps. So the installation process there really only took a couple minutes. I didn't keep the exact time of the clock, but you can see where it's where the clock says now. So we're going to go ahead and do you want to restart your computer to use the new system? So we'll go ahead and hit yes. And we need to remove that installation disk. I'm going to pull this guy out and slide my mouse back in there so we can use the mouse more easily here. You can see it booted automatically into the grub menu to boot into the operating system. So that's great. Go ahead and plug our charger back in there. And on the capture card, it's probably going back to the split screen mode again. So here is our login screen. And we'll go ahead and log in. And now once I'm logged in, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. Change our display settings, mirror the display settings. Give that a second to get itself all mirrored up properly. Keep the new configuration so we can go back up. So now we are set up. Now at this point in time, I have several videos about setting up a Linux system. I'm not going to go ahead and do those in any form or any big detail. I'm just going to go ahead and look at our first steps real quick. First is our desktop colors. This is a new simplified system to choose your better colors. And then we can do light, we can do dark, we can do the mixed, and then we can choose different coloration schemes that we have there. So we can go ahead and pick those, and we can also go with a more advanced settings, which is the older way of doing things. System snapshots, multimedia codecs. You might want to do this if you're planning on doing any movies or music. And so this is going to go ahead and install the codecs. And then there's the update manager. I'm going to go ahead and make sure everything is all up to date, and then look at some software I know he wants installed and things like that. But from here, this is how easy it is. Once we got everything working correctly, it was just a matter of installing that ISO and setting the whole system up. So there you have it. That's actually how easy it is to convert a system. Now, this system is Linux Mint. It will always boot Linux Mint at this point in time. It's going to continue to have this operating system. There's no more components of Windows on here. You have now full control over this computer to do what you like with it. So with that, we are going to wrap this one up here. If you have not subscribed to the channel already, go ahead and do that. Leave us a like and a comment down below, or hey, tell me, no, Windows is much better than this crap, blah, 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 blah. And then, you know, we'll all just read that comment and go, no, I'm kidding. We won't do that. We won't do that. But we did want to show you how easy it is to actually convert a computer from Windows to Linux. And so with that, guys, thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.